Before we go any further, can I just check that those online can hear, please? Got Councillor Cameron online. Yep, thank you. Excellent. Thank you, Ewan. This will be the last meeting of this committee under its current name, and from the 20th of May, the committee will be known as the Corporate and Strategic Scrutiny Committee. So we will mark the passing of this committee with due solemnity this morning. The agenda pack with papers is available via mod.gov or directly from the council website from the link that was sent out to members. When you're invited to speak, could you please state clearly who you are for the benefit of anybody who is listening to the meeting so that they can identify who is speaking, and please ensure that you use the microphones if you are in the room. The meeting will be audio recorded by the council. As agendas are now viewed electronically, would members and officers please refer to page numbers from the published agenda pack to assist everyone present in finding the appropriate information. There is no expected fire alarm this morning, but should this happen, please follow the Democratic Services officer. They will lead the way out. Following this meeting, after a brief pause, there will be a briefing session on waves 2 and 3 of the Inspiring Innovation Programme. This session is intended as a workshop style briefing rather than a formal item of committee business, but I do hope that committee members will be able to stay for it, because I think it will be very informative and helpful to us as we move forward with inspiring innovation. So, apologies for absence, please, Mr. Lackett.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, committee. We have received apologies from Councillor Dawn Johnson, and we have Councillor Steve Ashton attending as her substitute. Also, Councillor Henry Hophouse will be acting as Vice Chair for this meeting. We also received apologies from Councillor Sue Osborne, and we have Councillor Conor Payne as her substitute for this meeting.
Thank you very much. The minutes of the previous meeting held on the 25th of March have been circulated. May I take them as true record, please? Everybody happy with that? May I see all those in favour? Thank you. Are there any matters arising from them that anybody wishes to draw attention to? No. Declarations of interest. Are there any interests that members wish to draw to our attention this morning, noting that existing declarations, including membership of other councils and the local government pension scheme, have already been recorded? Anything else? Good, thank you. This morning, we do not have any questions or statements received from members of the public. So that therefore means we can move straight to agenda item 5, which is the Scrutiny Corporate and Resources Outcome Tracker. And I'll invite Mr. Latkovich to present an update on the outcome tracker, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, the outcome tracker before you is dating actions and outcomes and recommendations made by this committee since September last year. And you can see that the couple of responses from executive had been received. One response is actually which went to the full council regarding the budget scrutiny, which is attached as Appendix 1 to the tracker, and also response from recommendations and outcomes made by this committee in terms of the unreasonable customer behavior policy, which went to the executive, and response from executive is attached as Appendix 2 to the tracker. Other than that, nothing really else to update. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Latkovich. I know this is an evolving document, and it will be an extremely important element in the way in which we build on the importance of scrutiny in the coming months. I'm just conscious of the fact, though, that particularly in relation to the outcomes of the executive meeting, when our recommendations on managing unreasonable customer behaviour were considered, what we have before us this morning is really the paper that the executive considered rather than the outcome of their discussion. And I think the outcome of their discussion is something that is really important for us in acknowledging how those items are being carried forward. So I think as we evolve this, we need to be perhaps more cognizant of the results of the meetings rather than just the papers that go to them.
Thank you, Chair. What we are planning to do for future reference, we will also link in the minutes of the executive to reflect how discussion took place on particular items as well, and along with the responses, that executive gives to committee on issues raised in that committee as well.
Well, and not just indeed the executive, but anybody else to whom we remit a recommendation. We really need to know what the reaction was rather than just the paper that went to them. Vice Chairman, Councillor Hobhouse, did you want to come in?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I find it sad that none of the recommendations of this committee were actually taken up at executive, and I fully accept that we're going to review the situation in November. What I find so difficult is, as far as I know, in the last 5 years, there's only been one person who has been put on the naughty step, for want of a better description. And I very much doubt between now and November we're going to have another one unless there's something goes very wrong with our processes. And I therefore question how we are going to review it if we haven't been through the process with somebody who is being dealt with under that process.
Thank you. I don't think it's appropriate for us to revisit the whole of that item this morning, but I think we note your concern, and I am assured that the discussion that was had at the executive is going to be continued. We just need, I think, to make sure that we have a record of that continuance and that we know when we're going to be able to engage again in that discussion with the executive. So that's where I think we really need to get that marked down in our outcome tracker. Councillor Filmer.
Thank you, Chair. It was just on a similar vein. There were a couple of issues on here. One related to the Somerset Rivers Authority, and it basically says what the next step was, but it doesn't take it any further than that. And I would like, just as the Chair said, the reassurance that actual outcomes come back to this document as well as internal processes, because it feels very much that's what it's about at the moment. And again, the one that sort of summed it up for me also was the next one down, which was relating to writing to DEFRA, and the response was a letter can be sent to DEFRA. And I'm thinking, well, that's great, but is it going to be? Has it been? And is there a response? That's the sort of outcomes I think I'd be hoping we'd see.
Well, I think I endorse exactly what you said. It's those further steps that we need to have recorded here. But Mr. Latkovich, if you could just take that one forward, and as the documents evolve, hopefully those points will be fully embodied within them. Anything else then, ladies and gentlemen, on the outcome tracker? Councillor Mansell, hello, did you see you? Did you have a refreshing ride in this morning?
I didn't, and so I think that would have made it better. But anyway, so yes, and apologies if this has been mentioned already, but possibly not. So I'm looking at page 27 and 28. And I think it's relevant to comments just made. So we've got two items that are green here on the risk report, and our request recommendations on that and on corporate performance. Now both of them been marked with green, but again we don't actually know what the outcome is. So I don't think they can, and green indicates that they come off the outcome tracker, but I don't think they can until we've had the outcome. So can they stay, please?
Right, thank you for that. Yep. So see,
Just broadly, if I take you to the at the top of, I think it's 25, the pay and rewards business case item, got a little bit of a concern that that's not recorded with any meaningful timeframes. It's as soon as possible and so on. I think that, you know, my concern is that we're very dependent on that for fixing a lot of problems with pay and rewards across the organisation. We have departments unable to recruit. We have. I'm unclear as to whether we're going to see movement on matters such as, you know, are the unions engaging? You know, is this flowing properly? I don't want to get into the detail because there's another committee that that deals with that, but it is the sort of top of our list, and it's there for a reason, and we want to make sure the staff are looked after properly. So I'm just, it feels to me as though the reporting on that is a little light. I think I'd prefer certainly the next report to come back with some ideas of timescales and targets, so we can make sure that, you know, the executive is pushing that as much as it can. And also, I think we've got a little bit of an unusual role as a scrutiny committee because we can sort of talk to both sides.
well, obviously, by the time we get to the next meeting and we are strategic rather than merely corporate resources, all of these things I'm sure will have been addressed. Right. Anything else on the outcome tracker? Good, thank you. So we'll move on, if we may, then to item 6, which is developing the corporate plan, refreshed vision and priorities. We're very pleased to have the leader with us this morning, Councillor Rivens, welcome. And I would ask you to introduce this item, please.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, colleagues, for giving us space on your agenda to consider this important item. Colleagues will be aware that at the point of becoming one council of vesting day, we adopted a council vision that was for the period 23-26, I believe. So that was very much a document that reflected its time when we were bringing together 5 different organisations into one, and I think there was a need for that document for all of the predecessor councils to see themselves reflected in it in terms of their values, in terms of their priorities, and so on. And I believe that document successfully did that. Dear boy, events have taken hold of us, not least the financial emergency, which perhaps delayed that being forged into a council plan in the way that we would have aspired to. And the feedback that we have had from the Local Government Association peer review, from SIPFA, from our independent advisory board, MHCLG, Uncle Tom Cobley and all, has been that vision needs to be distilled, refined, to be something that can be used as to develop into that corporate plan in the future. So what the document you've seen before you is the outcome of that, and colleagues to my right will take you through that. For me, it's really important to understand that we've tried to distill it down to 3 missions that we see as priorities for the administration, but also 5 principles that we see as underlying those missions. And if those missions and principles were woven together, we've got the warp and weft there that I hope will create a vision that we can all as a council get behind, will give the clarity of purpose to our staff as they develop the corporate plan in a way that our partners who are advising us can see that clarity of purpose that we bring, and also that clarity of purpose that will bring to our staff as we deliver the ambitions that we have for our residents as we move into what we've described as the recovery phase and then the delivery phase of Somerset Council as we come through the excitement of the journey of local government reorganisation and financial emergency. Very pleased with what we've distilled out of those priorities in terms of those priorities and principles, those missions and principles, and really looking forward to that being developed as soon as possible into a corporate plan that can deliver for our residents. So I may hand over to Sarah, who will take us through the paper. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill, and good morning, everybody. Sarah Hawkins, Head of Assurance, Performance and Risk. Joe and I are going to do a little bit of a tag team. I'll cover sort of what we're looking for from Scrutiny today and how we've reached our new revision that we're proposing. And then Joe will talk through our corporate plan and how the two will fit together as a framework that will really, we hope, help us to prioritise the actions we take. So the ask of Scrutiny today, we would welcome comments on our refreshed council vision and our mission. So that's our priorities, particularly its ability to provide direction for the new corporate plan. And then in turn to consider what priority deliverables you would expect to see in the corporate plan that align back to that refreshed vision and those missions, providing recommendations to the executive. So this goes forward, the vision to executive next week in advance of full council in May, and then the corporate plan will follow in August, and that'll be some of the detail that sits behind it. As Bill said, why refresh our vision now? So our current vision was written at the point that Somerset Council became a unitary, and since then a lot has changed. Bill mentioned obviously the financial emergency. I think the way we've worked has evolved, and demand on our services we know continues to increase, and we've also started our Inspiring Innovation programme as well, which is already really starting to shape how we work differently. The feedback from peers and most recently our corporate peer progress review was really, really strong, that we really do need something that helps us. So it's really important the new vision will help us guide decision making, transformation activity and that allocation of resources. In terms of how we've created it, so the paper describes that in section 3 of the cover report. And I just wanted to highlight our staff have had a big role. So we did kick this off as part of our sort of culture work with staff. We had a survey gathering feedback from them before Christmas, and since then we have run a series of engagement sessions where they have helped to shape this, along with some sessions with our executive, and we've also fed in some existing feedback from our resident budget survey data, just to make sure that we've maximised the opportunity to feed that in and get those resident perspectives. The proposed vision and priorities are detailed in Appendix A. In terms of how we will deliver our vision, so I've mentioned the corporate plan and the framework and what we mean by that corporate plan. That's detailed in Appendices B and C. So the corporate plan is that delivery document. So it's the actions we will take and prioritise over the next 18 to 24 months in order to deliver the vision and hopefully there's improved outcomes for our customers and our residents. I did want to flag we don't currently have a corporate plan. So we recognise that we should have one, and that will, as I say, really help in terms of the prioritisation piece. I'm going to hand over to Joe now, who will take us through Appendices B and C, just so we're really clear in terms of the difference between the vision and the corporate plan.
Thanks, Sarah. Morning, everyone. Just to say, so my name is Joe Walsh. I'm the Corporate Strategy and Policy Manager here at Somerset Council. I'm going to start with Appendix C, if members are happy. So this is something that you'll all be familiar with. It's our golden thread diagram, and it provides a strategic framework to how each of our, sorry, it's just coming through on the screen now, I think. There we go. Each of our kind of key documents linked together. So on the left-hand side, we have the current council plan, soon to be the council vision, and And then flowing from that, we have council strategies, we have the corporate plan, or we will have the corporate plan once it's developed, we have our target operating model, and we have our service plans as well. So it really shows that all of this is really interconnected, and through producing the corporate plan, it will really strengthen that golden thread across all of the strategic documents that we produce at present. In terms of the corporate plan itself, which is Appendix B, we have a proposed framework which we are hoping to use or intending to use. It flows from our kind of 3 key missions that we've set out within the vision document. Subsequent to those, we have our key outcomes. So this is really what difference are we going to make as a council? What difference are we going to make to communities and residents? Below that will be our key actions. So how are we going to deliver those differences? We'll then have our related council strategies and policies. And the way that we're approaching this is that we're really keen that it's not done service by service, it's done across the council. So really utilising that golden thread to make sure that when strategies are being produced, they're being produced in a way that supports other services to deliver what they're set out to deliver, but ultimately delivering our key missions and our vision statement. In terms of performance and risk, we appreciate that the approach to this has been refreshed relatively recently. It is intended that the performance and risk framework will replicate the corporate plan. So we'll have key measures that are aligned with the projects that are listed within that. And we'll be updating that as soon as we have the corporate plan approved. And then, yeah, as Sarah's mentioned, we're seeking support from Scrutiny to provide direction on the corporate plan relating to the new vision, as well as the priorities you'd expect to see within that moving forward.
So we'll pause there and invite any feedback and questions. Thank you.
Thank you. I've got Councillor Seeb to begin with, and then Councillor Ashton.
Yes, Chairman. One of the things that we do in as public servants is we provide things that are not otherwise provided. And one of the things that worries me about the balance of this is I can't find the giving people the best possible start. In my particular concern is around children's play, which is a council function. We commission the ground that the play areas go onto. We commission the services of supporting families with opportunities, events around play. Play is very important for the really early years development of a child. It's also very important for the parents. It's one of the places the parents network and make connections laterally. But it's also where a really young child learns to take risks. It's where a really young child learns to use language, to talk to strangers. It's where they learn to socialise. It's where they learn to cooperate. It's where they learn about physical activity. Play does not appear at all in the document, nor does really the concept of early intervention. You know, the earlier we get going on trying to get people to live healthy lifestyles, and by that I mean in the very widest of meanings, the less work we have to do through life. It just seems to me obvious that, you know, we start really early with infant, preschool, nursery and school interventions, and yet that's not in the document, and I think it should be.
So, Justin, if I may put that point to Officer Hawkins, I read the first bullet point on connection on page 61 as essentially covering the point you've just made, but I might be adding too much weight to the document, and it might not really mean that at all. Sarah, can you comment?
Yeah, that was the intention in child-friendly communities in the connection point. I think it's also reflected to a lesser extent in the homes point as well, where it references, I'm just trying to find it now, support adults and children for the right home in the right place in the right time. It doesn't use specifically use the word play, but we can incorporate that into one of those sections there. If I could also just draw your attention to number 4 on the principles, where it says prevention comes first. I do think it's slightly oxymoronic that we've got a number 4 says prevention comes first. Maybe we could look at that. However, it is there, but I think that we've got a session just to do some polishing, and I think you've given us some excellent burnishing material there.
Okay, thank you. So that may then be a point that needs to be emphasised and drawn out further. Councillor C.
Yes, Chairman, I think I'm in heated agreement with you that, that really the point of a vision is to drag people's thinking to the area, not to be something that, you know, you can dig around and maybe justify against. It should really be a leadership document. And equally, I agree with the leader. I think it's always prevention first if you're trying to produce a sustainable situation. Avoiding the problem is far better than dealing with it. So I think perhaps in your editing that might actually go up to the top. Thanks.
Thank you for the feedback. If work, rest and play had not been copyrighted already, we'd have probably used that somewhere in there. But yeah, it's the feedback's very welcome. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Ashton.
My concern is the relegation of climate change to a subtopic. Ignoring the substantial and ever-increasing impact, anticipation and planning for its consequences will be significant and will become more so. There's a cursory mention for flooding, but there's heat stroke, subtropical diseases and their vectors becoming more apparent in this climate, CO2 levels, which will have manifold consequences, and eventually shorten life expectancy of our residents. AMOC weakening and potential collapse, which may have cause food supply shocks. And there's very little in this document covering any of these subjects. And it's almost sort of what I consider this is almost like this Jonathan Swift approach, where we're worrying about big endians and little endians, but the big issue is just being ignored.
Okay, so bullet point 5 on principles, we take action to protect Somerset's natural environment and tackle climate change. However, Councillor Ashton, I think, does make some very valid points. So again, Officer Hawkins or the leader, would you care to comment?
Happy to come in, and then Bill, if you want to add any specific points as well, please do follow. I think it's worth reminding us in terms of the vision that it sits on that left-hand side of our golden thread. So in terms of the detail of some of the really specific deliverables, that will sit in the corporate plan, and that's the piece that will follow and that we will bring back to scrutiny June, July, so you can look at the details. So there won't be some of the explicit mentions of specific areas will follow in that corporate plan, but the vision document is higher level in its very nature. So I think, as you've pointed out, climate change was added as a principle, so that's something that was added in, and the point of those principles is to really help guide how we do things, how we approach things, and within the 3, priority 1, priority 2, priority 3, opportunity, connection, homes, there is some references to how we embody that 5th principle through the 3 vision areas.
Yeah, absolutely. I have a lot of sympathy with the points that Councillor Ashton has made, and it may well be that we just need to look at some of the language and make sure that principle, first of all, could have higher emphasis in there. I do take that point, but also the health implications, which I think he's particularly highlighted, are something that we could perhaps reference in the prevention section, and also in the priority around homes, where we talk about healthy homes, talk about healthy communities, as well as that. Maybe that's reflected in the connection points as well. But the point is well made, and I think that's a second point of homework we'll be doing on Friday when we edit this for the executive, and certainly welcome the feedback, Councillor Ashton.
Thank you. Councillor Hophouse.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Moving on from what Steve has just said, you got down on page 68 at the bottom, interconnecting, just lost the page typically at this point, interconnectivity on all your priorities, and in there is not climate change. And in my opinion, you should have that along with the inspiring innovation, digital transformation, workforce development and financial stability underpin every priority, and somewhere in there should be climate change.
Thank you very much. I think that's absolutely, we should reference those cross-cutting principles in the golden thread interconnectivity. So yeah, thank you for your feedback. We'll make sure that's updated within the framework.
Good, thank you. Councillor Filmer.
Thank you. A couple of questions. Okay, the first one's a bit processy, but within the document, it says that there's been extensive engagement with members in the drawing up of this, and then mentions especially the executive. I'd just like to understand what other involvement there's been of members, and you've mentioned obviously a lot of involvement with the staff, which is absolutely right. The other thing that slightly concerns me with the document, and I'm coming at this maybe from a slightly different view from the last number of speakers. On page 48, there's a comment made about there's a need to make clearer and more explicit choices about priorities, affordability and ways of working. My slight concern with this document, if we're not careful, is we can throw absolutely everything into there. I know we've got to raise our eyes to the horizon, but you can't achieve everything. We are within the world that we're in. We have the restrictions that we have as to what we can achieve. And is there a danger that we set goals that are so unachievable that we end up disappointing people rather than actually maybe cutting our coat more according to our cloth? And I just wonder whether that's something that, I know a vision is a vision, but it needs to be a vision, not a mirage.
Councillor Evans.
Yeah, when my late father passed away, I found that he always carried a note around from his mother, which said, "Aim for the highest. You may fall short, but fall short, but it's jolly good practice." So yeah, I want us to be ambitious, and I want us to be realistic. And you're absolutely right. That is the balance, and that certainly reflects the feedback we've had from our partners who've been advising us. So I would absolutely recognise the point that you make, and there is a balance there. I think it was helpful feedback on the council vision that we had put together at the start, that there was an element of trying to please everybody. That was perhaps the nature of taking an organisation, or 5 different organisations into one, where it's a merger and you're trying to keep everybody on board. There was that perceived danger of it being a takeover, and we were trying to reassure people that the values of all 5 councils were reflected in the new council, and that those people who were joining the council, Somerset Council, afresh, could see themselves in that as well. When we've now moved on in that process to being that one council, in terms of member involvement, yet you'll be aware that members were also included in that survey work that was taking place earlier. We're at that stage in the process in terms of the governance that we've come to scrutiny after doing it in an informal executive session. That's exactly what we're doing at the moment, and we welcome your feedback. As you'll be aware, this is coming to executive next week. While we welcome feedback at executive, then it's coming to full council, and we welcome feedback at full council. I think we're at that stage of the governance. One of the big criticisms, I don't know the word criticism. One of the pieces of feedback that we genuinely value from our partners has been around pace. And there's a timeline slide somewhere that I've seen that has said that shows we've taken about 6 months to put together this piece of paper. And then we needed to the corporate plan and everything else in the thread. You can consult and engage until the cows come home, but ultimately we've got to show that leadership as well to say that's where we're going, and this is what we're going to do about it. and we can spend a lot more time doing the engagement, but I don't think we'll deliver. And I think we're all became councillors for outcomes, not for ideas.
Thank you very much. Councillor Mansell.
Thank you. Yeah, I will just mention that I think there's a little bit of a feeling amongst us that we've not really had much opportunity to be involved. I was quickly trying to think what the survey might have been, and I can recollect something just before Christmas that came out, literally just a few days before. We were asked to give 2 words or 2 sentences or something back. I must admit, I sort of looked at it, thought, you know, what's this about? And to be honest, didn't really have time to respond because it came literally just before Christmas, is my recollection. But I stand to be corrected, but I'm trying to think what the involvement was. Okay, I sort of, and it's been sort of mentioned. There actually is a really big stated aim of this council, which is not a secret. We do know, we're told it regularly, but I'm not sure it's quite reflected in this provision, but I think it's intended to be. And that is, the council's got to downsize. It's still got to save lots of money. You know, that is the clear message of the medium-term financial strategy, of the budgets we've been setting. But quite where this vision will lead and or is it slightly understand struggle to know what they mean. Opportunity seems like the best of the 3, but connection and homes as the big 3 driving forces of the councils. Homes clearly is, you know, vitally important, an absolute essential. But you know, what does it lead to the council doing across the piece? And then we've got these organisational principles. They're not apparently priorities, but they are something that underpins the priorities and how they're delivered. But you know, how does this work? And it's been mentioned several times now about we've got climate change coming in at this level, which is something we've made declarations about the importance of it. I'll perhaps come back to that just before I finish. But also on that list, we've got our communities, something which we all agree is absolutely vital. But then in terms of an organisational principle, it's where it happens. And again, you sort of think, well, what does this mean? Is this we're expecting our communities to deliver our services more? And clearly, you know, there's lots of examples of that happening and where it can be good. But, you know, what is the council's role in this as well, which is, you know, what this document's about. I'm sort of left, I don't get an impression about, you know, what the council's going to do with this, and the whole thing feels sort of quite limited in what it's going to deliver, which I think comes back probably to the first point, that a major aim actually is to downsize the council and save money because of the position we find ourselves in, unfortunately. Okay, yeah, so just to sort of 2 final points then. Clearly, though, the council is about public services, and we have statutory obligations to do that and want to do it well. And you hope the vision and the corporate plan will help with that. Now it's said though that it's not going to do it service by service, and okay, working across the services is good. But also I feel the services need to be able to develop themselves too. You need to have responsibility within the service. You need to have knowledge within the service area. And that is often how they grow and flourish. And okay, the connection should be going across the council where they should be. But it does concern me a bit if we're wanting to take also dilute what the services can deliver, and especially because that's sort of what I've seen's happened already, that we've taken the knowledge and the ability to deliver away from services, and we now have to increasingly rely on consultants to come in and do it for us because we haven't got the knowledge or the capacity within the council to do it. And time after time, I feel that's a real weakness of the council. And perhaps one of the places where I've seen it most of all is on climate change. This thing we declared as an emergency, we needed to address with urgency. So, you know, what did we do? We took the climate team right down to the bare minimum. It was going to be one officer at one time. We managed to rescue another one when some of us started making a fuss about that. And we've just seen at a corporate level, the climate agenda just stall, just not develop over the last few years. That's what's happened. And the climate and place scrutiny, this has just been a major frustration for us because we just, you know, we're trying to push it and we're just pushing into nothingness. So several other councillors have mentioned that needs to come higher up the priority. You will gather from me, I think that too. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Mansell. Councillor Revens, I think you wanted to come back.
Well, thank you for the feedback, Councillor Mansell, and apologies if you missed the survey last December. It was also featured regularly on internal communications such as Dragon's Pen. We will take away lessons that are clearly not all members are perhaps recognising those opportunities to contribute. You do have that opportunity today. You do have that opportunity next week at executive. You do have that opportunity the week at the Maysville Council. So I do appreciate the feedback, but that's 4 opportunities for members to be involved. We've heard you many times about the challenges that this council faces, that we need to be doing less because of where we are, and that's exactly where the corporate plan will be. And you want us to do more on climate change, and yet at the last executive you were asking us to be less ambitious on climate change. So I'm a little bit confused as to the direction you would like us to take. However, your feedback is welcome, and we will bear that in mind when we revise this report.
Councillor Mansell, you want to come back? Can I just say, though, this isn't really the opportunity for a debate between members and the leader of council. This is the opportunity for members of this committee to be able to make comment on the report so that then that can be improved before the plan can be improved before it comes back to the rest of council at later stages. Councillor Mansell.
I'm trying to be, you know, understand what's going on. I'm trying to challenge, and I'm trying to contribute constructively where I can. And I have to say, it's so frustrating when the responses indicate it's not being received that way. And I have to say that's an increasing frustration I've felt now over the last year. You know, this council is becoming a really difficult place to deliver and to work. I go around the offices, they're overstretched. They're being asked to do too much. They can't respond. You know, am I the only one who's seeing this? What is going on? You know, there's been some real failings in my area, and trying to get even the senior leadership to acknowledge and understand that has been really difficult. And I'm afraid that does reflect some of my frustrations. The survey, well, okay, if we were given options and they were hidden away in Dragon's Pen and things like that, they were pretty damn minimal. You know, they're not really where we expect to be consulted and asked if we've got a view. I think, yeah, we need to do better if you want to know what we think. But I'm here today giving my feedback. I'm taking this opportunity. I've just given some feedback. I do hope it's been heard and will be responded to. And on climate, you know, I really object to that comment. You're saying I'm wanting us to dilute our ambitions. Are you not understanding? You know,
'Cause
the climate agenda is a I believe, you know, of any councillors, I'm one who's pushed this agenda and tried to push it in a realistic, practical way, really want to get involved with it, really want to help. And yet, for some reason, the leader of the council has got the view that I'm trying to scale back the council's ambition. What an absolute load of nonsense. And I have to say, how dare he say that? I'm really quite offended by that comment.
Right, thank you, Councillor Mansell. I think the key point that you're making is that perhaps the document needs to reflect further on the financial imperatives that are leading to organisational reorganisation and potential diminution. And if we can just lay that comment before you, Officer Hawkins, for consideration, that I think would be helpful. Okay, so may I move on to Councillor Trimnell?
Thank you, Chair. So I feel like I don't want to seem dismissive or as if I don't care about the work that we have to do. But sometimes I think it feels like a lot of the work we do is very inward looking. And I guess we have to do that. And I think it's a shame that we have to do that, because I'd far rather be spending time in this meeting talking about actual things we're doing to deliver for residents, rather than visions that we have to do because we're expected to do them and we have to make them look nice. And I feel as though I've read the same phrases and words in this that I've read in nearly every other document. I don't even know what documents exist anymore because there are so many of them. And I understand it. I understand we have to do it, but I just find it frustrating. I wonder what change does this demonstrate? And I guess the answer would be to look back at what was there before and then track those changes to see what's different. But I don't have time to do that. I sometimes feel as though we produce these things, we discuss them, we scrutinise them, we work out what needs to be better, what is good about them. And there's lots that's good about them, don't get me wrong. But then we just put them on, they go on the shelf. Who are they for? Who is reading them and who is using them? And in some ways, it feels like me on New Year's Day, and I say, this is the year. This is the year I'm going to start eating healthily. I'm going to get 8 hours sleep every night. I'm going to do some exercise, and I'm going to read more. And I'm going to do and these visions. But are they achievable? You know, are we just producing something because we have to produce something? You know, we've got phrases in there which just astound me. When we say we'll do something, we do it well. And I just think, oh, you know, why are we writing this? This should just be standard. Do you see what I mean? These things, we shouldn't have to put that in a mission statement. That should just be what we do. Our communities are where it happens. And so there's a lot of phrasing, and it comes through in all of these documents in all different areas. I could go to any one meeting and read those same things. And I get that there are cross-cutting themes, but maybe there's just too much of this. And we need to sort of, you know, maybe the world needs a bit less of all of these documents all the time. So sorry, because that's probably going to make me really in trouble now as well, but so I'm willing to take it.
You're basically saying, is this our equivalent of a New Year's resolution and will be observed with as much attention as New Year's resolutions ordinarily are?
I do recognise those concerns, Councillor Trimnell, and I may well have expressed them privately myself. However, if we look at the diagram that is on the board at the moment, the most important thing is to get from this vision into a corporate plan into which we are getting action that delivers on priorities, missions, and those principles that underlie them. So I want to get this through so that we can get on with the job. We are now in that recovery phase from the financial emergency, and now is the time to get on with the job. We've been given advice that our existing vision was an impediment to doing that, and we take advice from the experts from LGA, SIPFA and MHCLG and so on very seriously, because they are experts in the field. But the need to move on and develop the corporate plan for me is now the pressing need. So yes, I'll take on board all the feedback that we've had today, and not all of it has been consistent, but we need to crack on, get this vision piece of work over the line, and then we can get on with delivering on the corporate plan, which is the area in which I would like to be in, not just on the vision section. But the vision section is important. It's not just a tick box exercise. And if you look at reports that come regularly before executive, regularly before yourselves and scrutiny committees, you will see the council vision reflected in those reports. So I don't believe it is a New Year's resolution to be forgotten. I think it is embedded in all the reports that we see, and it is the job of both executive and scrutiny to ensure it is. So if it isn't, we aren't doing our job as members in holding the organisation to account for delivering on our vision.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I would come back to is just I could have come up with lots of ideas and said I think we should add this in. I just don't see what it's going to change, and I think that's the thing, unless we're making change. But I could be wrong. Happy to hear that I am wrong.
I think what it's going to change is we can get on and do the corporate plan, bluntly.
Thank you. Councillor Payne.
Okay, thank you. I don't want to really go much more on the environmental point, but just when I started as a councillor and shadow executive member for the environment and climate change, there was a huge focus then on environmental work from Somerset Council, especially with vesting. And now, although it is in point 5, page 63, I've got it here, we take action to protect Somerset's natural environment and tackle climate change. All that's mentioned is we're committed to reducing our environmental impact and building a more resilient Somerset. So when it goes from being a core value of Somerset Council to not being one of the top 3, I can understand the frustrations and do echo comments by Councillor Mansell and Councillor Ashton. But like I say, I won't go into it too much. My second point is regarding page 62, which is about our missions. Now, it's more of an English language point than anything else, but it is what we will do today to achieve our vision. But under every point, it is stuff we are already doing. So it is, we're working to improve travel. We're working to ensure residents have access to safe housing. So it's not a change as to what we will do, it's what we already are. So again, to echo Councillor Trimnall's comments, it is anything really changing? Are we carrying on what we already have? My third point is more about the how. For example, priority 1, page 64, look at educational attainment, skills and qualification. I mean, that involves money, that involves finance, it involves working with schools more collaboratively to be able to attain, and that, you know, there's an implication there. But same again, supporting a business environment. I mean, how? Free parking, is that how you're going to support businesses to be able to get more people on the high street and support that business environment? So again, cost. Priority 2, page 65, easier and safer to move around Somerset. So making it safer and easier to move by train, by bike. I mean, we've been fighting, for example, in Chard South for ages to have a cycle path with very limited movement, and same for the Parkway. So again, it's just going to involve cost. And then priority 3, it's all about homes. Well, I mean, for a listening council, the thing that residents are crying out for the most is infrastructure. And so we've got a plan for homes, and we're going to sort of slightly redirect for homes. But I think what everybody knows we need more than anything is infrastructure, and we're not getting that. So, you know, where's that in the plan? And then finally, it's just a comment that only once within Appendix A is it mentioned about culture. So I just wondered whether or not, with the reprioritisation of the council's efforts and direction, what the impact of culture will be on the workforce. Just a few points, that's all.
Right, that's an interesting collection of things. One of the key points, however, is the vision is not worthless if you haven't got the resource to be able to accomplish.
Quite right, Chair.
Yeah. So, Officer Hawkins or Councillor Revens?
Yeah, I'll perhaps refer you to my answer to Councillor Triminal earlier. I think what you're looking for will be in the corporate plan and won't be in the vision. So I take on board all of those points. And that's where I think Joe did a really good job of explaining that diagram that's on the board there, of saying the vision's on that left side, which is what we're talking about today. Next comes the plan, which is what you want to see. So the sooner we get this vision over the line, the sooner we can do what you want, which is the plan. Do you get where we are in the process?
Yes, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
So, bearing in mind, however, that part of the recommendation that we're asked to look at this morning is consider what priority deliverables you would expect to see in the new corporate plan aligned to the refreshed council vision and missions. So, that is part of the thinking that we've got to have this morning, and that is the point that you're making, isn't it then, Councillor Payne, that those are some of the things that we would want to see in the corporate plan, following on from the vision. Councillor Trimble, did you want to come back? And then I've got Councillor Sun.
Yeah, I did. I just want to ask about the corporate plan then. How long will this take to put together? And what are we working from at the moment? We must have one already, and we're looking just for a new plan to supersede, I imagine.
So we don't currently have a corporate plan. We recognised that we needed to do the vision refresh first. The corporate plan has been delayed from the financial emergency and then obviously our restructuring last April. So in terms of the timing of that, we have started work already. What we didn't want to do is to wait until the vision approval, because we recognise that we need that in place to really help our staff understand what it means for them. So our current plan at the moment is to bring that back to Scrutiny, obviously the new Scrutiny Strategy Committee in July, in advance of approval in August at Executive. Which is, it's a lot of work, but we're confident that we can achieve that. And we're already working with service directors, directorate leadership teams to start bringing together what are the deliverables that sit under these broad areas. And then obviously we will have to ensure that we do that alongside within the MTFP envelope to make sure that what we set out for the next 18 months, we're confident in terms of our delivery, and also the impact that will have. So how are we going to know? How will that impact our performance measures? How may we need to evolve them to make sure they align with the vision and with the corporate plan, giving us that full thread.
So it sounds like this corporate plan is very important. So how have we been functioning for the last 3 years, if I'm being generous, without one?
Thank you, Chairman. So we have had a corporate action plan, but it wasn't pulled together in the same way to actually be a comprehensive response to the original vision. I think, as the leader has said, through you, Chairman, that the original vision was very much about bringing all the organisations together, about trying to make it feel like it was a merger and bringing actually the themes that were coming from each of the predecessor councils into the organisation, so we didn't lose a huge amount of what was going on. The corporate plan that rose from that had a number of actions in, but it's fair to say there were specific actions. Corporate plan's the wrong word. We call it corporate action plan, if I remember rightly. But there were a number of actions in there, but they were just individual actions. It wasn't taking the themes from the vision and saying, if this is what we're saying we're about, what would you then do differently? The key thing that we feel as the senior officer team needs to come from the vision and the refresh work that we're doing is actually the conversation across all the officers that says, so what's different? If actually what we do is write a document and everyone does what they were doing beforehand, then there was no point writing it. What we need to do is use this as a teeing off point to have the conversation with the officers across the council that says, because you have a new vision, because we're saying these things are priority actions for us, and that includes all the things that in the priorities, in the objectives, and will appear into the corporate plan, then actually what are we doing different in our services? It picks up some things about Councillor Mansell mentioned about people having lots of things to do. Actually, this gives clarity to the officer team about what is more important than things that aren't. It picks up on the issue that, I appreciate the comment I think you made, Councillor Triminal, about the principles, about saying to people, if we're going to do things, do it well. But actually, in the same meeting, we've heard a number of councillors talk about the fact that officers don't get back to people, don't reply to emails. Actually, we need to say those things. We need to have those conversations again across all of our teams and actually say, look, this is what we're about. This is what's important. This is what we want you to do in your day-to-day work. If nothing changes, then it won't work. But this is a pivot point for us, being able to have a different conversation with the officers rather than say, do everything, which is effectively what the original vision took us into, to make sure we had that good transition to the new council. This is more specifically saying, look, take these principles, apply to your work, take these objectives, apply to your work, and we need you to be doing different things to actually make these things come to life. Thank you, Chairman.
Right, thank you very much. Councillor Satton.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chair. I've heard a great deal this morning about what is and isn't in the vision. I think the vision is there to give us a start. Many, many years ago, when I started work, first of all, on day one, week one, my boss said to me some very important words. If you don't start right, you'll never finish right. This is the point of this today. This is a vision that we want to see opened up so that we can start right and finish right with a new direction. As Officer Sarkis just said, that the previous iteration of it was to bring all the former councils together in one. This is a new step now, and like I said, those words have stayed with me all my life, and they are absolutely the basis of everything that we do. If you do not start right, you will not finish right. This is a vision to get that message across and a starting point. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Sadden. I think that is probably the finishing point as far as members are concerned, but I'm going to ask Officer Heafy if he would like to comment.
Yeah, just to bring out the importance as well in terms of budgetary allocation. So when we start looking at a budget challenge that we have going forward, and we'll be starting to talk about 27, 28 fairly shortly, you'll be glad to hear. It's really important that we have in place a corporate plan and a vision that sets out what we're doing so that we can say to ourselves, is that item meeting a corporate plan requirement or not? And if it's not, why are we spending it? And they are the kind of questions we ask ourselves. We bring that out through the corporate plan and through service plans, which are an equally important component, that all services have a service plan. But then we can make sure we're spending the money in the right way, we're allocating people in the right way and people resources. All of that becomes really critical. So this is the absolute building block on which the whole budget process is built.
Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, if we can turn to the recommendations, you will see we're asked to review and comment on the proposed refreshed vision and missions, and also then what priority deliverables we'd expect to see in the new corporate plan. Can I suggest that in the light of the discussion this morning, we would like to particularly reference the need to give weight to children and young people in the vision, and that climate change needs to be given considerably more priority and referenced in the golden thread. So those items need to be deepened in the document. It is possibly premature for us to be able to talk about priority deliverables at this stage for the corporate plan, but I think the general point that we've discussed is that the deliverables should be realistic and financially supportable, and that principle needs to be the one that is absolutely adhered to in the corporate plan. Is there anything else that anybody would like to add to the recommendations, Councillor Payne?
Thank you. Yes, if I may just add to that in terms of the golden thread, what I had mentioned in my 3 points really, just to put infrastructure in there as alongside environment. I think infrastructure is incredibly important, and although it doesn't categorically fit into one of these visions, it definitely goes through all three in terms of skills and qualifications, in terms of safer to move around Somerset, and in terms of homes as well. It's something that moves between all three. So can we please put that in the golden thread as well?
Okay, I've got no problem with that. I must admit, I toyed with the fact that probably the infrastructure element was more appropriate to the corporate plan. But I think referencing it in the vision as well is perfectly fine. Is everybody happy with that? So may I see all those in favour? Any against? Oh, well, good. Thank you very much. And can I thank you, Councillor Revens, very much for being with us this morning.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Dubious as it might be. Thank you. Right, we'll move straight on, if we may, then to agenda item 7, which is inspiring innovation, including modern data and AI. We will turn to pages 73, and I will ask Councillor Butt-Philip to introduce this item.
Thank you very much, Chair. Members are used to seeing these regular reports, I know, and I won't give too much of an introduction. We have some very able officers present in the room to take us through the report. Sarah Cretney, Carl Haggerty, Josh Pym and Louise Broughtley. But I do think it's worth just giving a little bit of context to this. As has been referenced already today, we have over recent years and continue to face some significant financial pressures. Over the past few years, we have taken extraordinary steps to be able to address those, and I think we are reaching a really impressive place in terms of the ability that we have demonstrated as an organisation to rise to the challenges we face. What we've started to call sort of wave 0 of the transformation programme was, of course, My Life, My Future, which was the first big transformation that this administration invested in. Over the next few years, that will have saved approximately £55 million. That is quite a spectacular achievement, but we know that our budget gap is still far too great. We have taken steps over the course of the existence of Somerset Council to bring it down to the extent that the total savings we have made since vesting day are approximately 114 million. Those are annual savings, by the way, not cumulative. And after the work that has already been committed to this year, that figure will raise to 135 million. But there is still considerably further to go in terms of continuing to build the sustainable council that we need. So the Inspiring Innovation Transformation Programme needs to continue that work and is on course to continue that work. Members will remember that we took the decision earlier this year in the lifetime of this report to make another substantial investment into a series of business cases. Those business cases have now started, principally again in the adults, but with the proof of concept within both third-party spends and children, and that we will be bringing forward further business cases during the course of the year, what we call Wave 2. We've also committed to a cultural piece of work by our strategic partner, which involves a significant element of staff engagement and leadership training, and I'm sure we'll be hearing more about that. And of course, our cross-cutting and enabling work on projects such as the modern data and AI work, which is already starting to deliver some quite impressive outputs. Our EHCP drafting tool is it's either live or it's nearly ready to go live, and that is quite a spectacular piece of work, along with our redaction tool and many other areas where the modern data and AI function is really starting to make a difference to not just savings, but also outcomes. And the crucial thing that we have to remember about the whole of this project is it is about delivering the twin goals of financial stability and creating an organisation which can deliver the services and the priorities that the people and communities of Somerset want. So without further ado, that's my introduction. Over to Sarah.
Thank you, Theo, and thank you, Chair. So I'm pleased to be able to share with you the Q4 update report on our whole council transformation programme, Inspiring Innovation. So Q4, January to March. It's an update for yourselves and sets out the progress. As you'll see from the recommendation, you are asked to review the update report. Any comments on progress today, and also consider whether there are any recommendations that you would like to make to executive. Executive will be considering the same update report at their meeting next week. Just a little recap, as you know, and Theo's alluded to, the Inspiring Innovation Programme was established in July last year. It is to help the council work differently. It is about improving services for people and communities of Somerset. It is about using technology more effectively and strengthening how we lead and manage change across Somerset Council. What we're doing is we're bringing together people, our digital capability, new ways of working, and we're focused on improving outcomes, creating a better experience for our workforce. That's important in terms of some of our technology as well, and supporting the council's longer term financial sustainability. So this has been an important quarter for the programme, not least because we have 5 additional transformation business cases that were approved by full council in March, and they're now live as part of Wave 1, alongside activity that we already had in train and underway. And so the report in front of you today sets out the immediate priorities for the programme, which centre on 3 main areas, which we are running at the same time. So we're running those concurrently. It's really important to say that because this is about the pace at which we're working and the ambition of this transformation programme. And those 3 main areas are delivering the approved transformation activity. So that's what we're calling Wave 1. And Theo's alluded to Wave 0, which is kind of the work that we were doing. Obviously, we didn't start from a blank sheet of paper in terms of this transformation. We're doing a lot of work, the 114 million that Theo mentioned, up until this point. The second part is around delivering the next pipeline of business cases in time for member approval to go into budget setting for 27-28. We're calling this Wave 2, and these will be followed by further waves across the life of the programme. Personally, I like the idea of the waves because each wave is building upon the last as we progress with this transformation programme. The third area is around progressing the longer term vision for the future council, very much aligned to what we've just heard Bill and Sarah and Joe talking about earlier and getting your feedback. So just to go into a little bit more of the detail, as I've said, 5 additional transformation business cases approved by full council, now live. The Wave 1 is focused on the areas of kind of greatest cost and demand pressure. So we've got adult social care in there, children's services, and some of the core enabling functions. And it's designed to deliver, as we've said at the outset, improved outcomes and tangible impact on the medium-term financial plan. And this is set out in pages 76 to 79 of the report that's in front of you. So across Wave 1, we've got activity live, teams are mobilised, and we're beginning to track the early operational benefits in priority areas. And what's really important is maintaining momentum. So as these projects move forward from approval into delivery, we're making sure that we don't lose that pace at that point, which gives us that confidence then to deliver the Wave 2 activity and bring that forward earlier. So the structured pipeline we've put in place for what comes next is identifying and developing future opportunities. So we have around 11 Wave 2 opportunities in active development at the moment. And a clear process for moving from kind of early concept into business case. So which has that kind of tight assurance on delivery and capacity and return on investment. So that's what we're doing at the moment. Table 1 of the report shows that transformation activity that we have underway and how it's being managed across those 2 waves. So if you look at table 1, in the first column, you'll see that there are 5 transformation themes. So we have set up those themes to organise and govern the transformation across the council. And in Appendix A, there is a diagram which sets out that structure. So you can see that we have those thematic boards underneath the overall Inspiring Innovation board. The second column shows wave 1, which is activity that's already been approved in delivery. And this is where we're actively focused. And you'll see that there are savings figures shown against those projects. And those figures reflect the expected impact across the life of the MTFP, not single year savings, and they mature over time as the delivery embeds. Couple of points worth, so the second column, sorry, shows wave 2. That's about development rather than a commitment at this stage. So these are opportunities that are being explored and tested. And inclusion in wave 2 in this table doesn't automatically mean that these will move into delivery. So each one has to pass through affordability, capacity and delivery checks before any decision is taken. And of course, the democratic process is part of that decision-making process. So the key message from table 1 is to show that, we're holding that delivery together, delivering what's approved and tightly managing what we're developing and what comes next. So I've talked about the first of the 3 that I mentioned. The third is this early work on the longer term cross-council transformation and linked to the council vision, which we've just talked about. And this is where we really focus on the whole system drivers of change and demand and increasing our focus on prevention, cross-cutting. So again, bringing in this cross-cutting element and the future operating model. So rather than service-based projects. So again, moving, you can see at the moment, we're very much looking at the kind of services. And actually, as we move into some of those cross-cutting elements in wave 2 and 3 and beyond. Alongside delivery of wave 1 and wave 2 and development of wave 2, we've also continued to strengthen those critical organisational enablers that Theo mentioned. And this report for the first time includes the update on the modern data and applied AI as embedded within our Inspiring Innovation programme update. So this is really linking and reflecting the importance of the enabling work in delivering the overall programme. And we've got our colleague Josh here who will be able to answer any more detailed questions that the committee have around that, because I know that is an area of particular interest to this committee. So the point around and pages 79 to 82, you'll see that we've included quite a lot of information on this, recognising that this is the first time we've brought the 2 reports together. Modern data capability is fundamentally about giving services timely, reliable insight so that our decisions are based on evidence rather than assumption, whether that is about understanding the demand that's coming in, proactively targeting our interventions, or tracking the impact of change. And within that, AI sits as a practical tool in its own right. And where we're using AI, and again, Josh can talk in more detail on this, but we're using that in use cases that support professional judgment of our staff and improve productivity and reduce manual effort. It is not about replacing that, it's about how we support that. And it's really important to say that all of our work on the modern data and AI operates within agreed legal, ethical and governance controls with a clear line of sight to benefits. Page 83 then goes on, I know we've talked about this before at Scrutiny, to describe the emphasis on culture and leadership and organisational capability. It's well documented that success of major transformation programs is heavily reliant on changes that we make around how we do things. The report therefore sets out, our transformation is not just about delivery of projects. It talks about, paying close attention to the culture that exists and the culture that we want to create within Somerset Council. And this matters because the changes that we make in how we work together, how we lead, how we make decisions and work across boundaries, that really amplifies or accelerates the change that we can make and makes it easier to sustain. So within the culture programme, we've got a leadership and management development programme that I think the procurement process has just closed for that we're going to be delivering across the whole organisation. We have got culture discovery underway. So we've had a survey. There's a really exciting piece of work that's about to kick off in the next couple of weeks where we are using an AI agent to do more detailed interviews. I won't say more about that because we'll be able to talk about that at a later stage, but I will be intrigued to see how that works as we move forwards. And also the vision is part of that cultural space. And as has been talked about, it's really vital to have that vision that helps us to prioritise where we're putting our transformation efforts. In terms of how this links to the MTFP, so that's on page 84. We are very realistic about the scale of the financial challenge and the important role and contribution that transformation plays in that. And so what you've got on table 2 on page 84, what that shows is by directorate or area, it's got the total recurring transformation opportunities identified. It's then got how much of that is already reflected in our medium-term financial plan, the one-off investment that's needed to enable that delivery, and then the expected return on investment. You can see that starting with adult social care and housing, this is where the largest opportunity and the largest investment requirements sit in wave 1, and that reflects the scale of cost and demand pressures, but also an opportunity to build on the award-winning My Life, My Future programme that was part of wave 0, as we're calling it. Children, families and educations, this is an accelerator. You'll remember from when we talked about the business cases, this is in accelerator phase or diagnostic phase, because what we're doing is making sure that we've got the validation so that we can commit to a larger scale approach as soon as possible. There also, this might be new language, so supplier value optimization. This is what we had been calling third-party spend. And again, in here, this is a proof of concept stage, not assumed savings, and the opportunity range is identified through the diagnostics. So work is underway right now for us to be able to understand what savings we can put against the MTFP for 27-28 and onwards. So I'm nearly there. So it's really important just to remember, though, that taken together, the programme is planned to achieve an overall return of around £3 for every pound invested across the life of the MTFP. Some projects will deliver less than that. Some will deliver significantly more. And what matters is that we look at that across the overall balance. Something that I've heard Clive mentioned before is quite often in transformation, you see that investment going in up front, and what the transformation is doing is it is delivering in future years. So that's something to pay attention to. So in terms of the investment that we've put into transformation, by 2030-31, our programme needs to deliver at least 135 million of benefit. And that's why over the next year, you will continue to see us working tirelessly to maintain the momentum, broaden that pipeline, particularly in areas like children's services and third-party spend, and progressively shifting to this whole system approach. So just to recap, 3 things: accelerating delivery of wave 1, bringing forward robust, implementation-ready wave 2 business cases, and working with yourselves, staff and partners to translate the emerging vision for the council into a clearer operating model that shapes our future transformation. Happy to explain the report in more depth and provide any briefings where that would be helpful.
Thank you very much, Officer Scrutiny. Officer Pym, do you want to say anything now specifically about AI, or you'll wait for questions? Thank you. Right, Councillor Seeb.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you for the report. I think there are 3 points which I want to make. The first one is around savings. I mean, clearly there are mechanisms available to you to either be more efficient which would include integrating several efforts more effectively as well. So you're still delivering the service, but you're delivering it at a lower cost. And I can see how that can be accounted and a benefit claimed. You can have a new capability and be able to do more or differently, and particularly more. Again, you can see how benefit will be claimed. What I'm not seeing in the report is sort of the pre-planning for the reporting of success, shall we say. I appreciate that we removed the budget up front. What we should be doing is assuring ourselves that having removed the budget up front, in anticipation of the savings, the service is still delivering, and it's not being it's not down to the transformation. Any shortfall is not down to the transformation. So I'm not quite seeing that sort of thinking ahead of checking the glide slope as well as the flight plan. The other thing which the report sort of sniffs at, but to my mind doesn't quite succeed, is you've had some spectacular successes. I've been involved with officers in trying to actually publicise, for example, the way in which the AI was being used in the flood response on addressing. Now, that single example is actually a month and a bit old now and has been publicised and appears here as a sole example. And I know you're doing an awful lot of things. It would be nice if what we were seeing was a list of achievements, particularly in the enabling new ways of working and enabling new linkages, that could be firstly put to the council so the council can see the return on investment, because that is not necessarily a tangible return. It's a technology return, if you see what I mean. But also, I think the public need to understand that this is not about mass job losses are caused by simple automation and you get a worse service afterwards. This is about better delivery for them and at the same or lower cost. You know, that's a positive thing. So getting the examples out there, I was a bit disappointed in this report in that the example that was offered up was a slightly stale one, and I would encourage you to try and freshen up the next report with more examples of success. And finally, I think it's not quite clear in the report. I know what you mean by the enterprise capability. You know, actually being able to do types of things that you could not do before, as opposed to a platform, which is the machine that you give the job to, or the machinery, including software that you give the job to. I just didn't think that came through very clearly, because you do hop backwards and forwards between we've now got a capability, meaning I've now got tools and techniques, versus we've now got a capability which we're using, which is developing new ways of working. And I didn't think that came through very well. So that was my 3 points, just really observations. Overall, I understand the report. I'm reasonably content. I just think next report, I want to really feel massively enthused.
Thank you, Councillor. Do you want to respond to those observations?
So I'll just pick up the firstly, thank you for those comments, because absolutely that is where we need to be in terms of celebrating those. I like that, spectacular successes. Thank you, and bringing those out more in this, taking that opportunity. In terms of your first point around assuring delivery. So one of the things that we are working really hard on at the moment is our benefits realisation framework. So this is where we are not only looking at the operational measures that we expect to be impacted, the financial measures that we expect to be impacted by the projects, but the bottom line of the service, and Clive, do correct me if I'm using the wrong terminology, how that actually then maps out into the budget. at the end of that. And that's what so a lot of work that's going on at the moment. It may be something that we might want to look at in a bit more detail at a workshop, but wanted to reassure you that absolutely that's the framing for every single one of these projects that's within the transformation. On the enterprise capability, I would hand over to Josh.
Yeah, thank you. I think on the comms one, I think it's not just for this paper, it's wider as well around how we're showing those benefits. And I think we are making some really good progress internally. And I think your newsletters, Carl, we're trying to infuse a lot of that. Maybe there's a question for what goes externally, maybe a little bit more. In terms of enterprise-wide capabilities, I think one of the biggest one to pick out there is prevention. So it's how do we enable prevention? And when we talk about prevention, I think we skim across the surface quite easily. Prevention is a big thing. What we're saying is that we're helping and supporting residents before they've reached the point of our critical services, which in itself means that our critical services are not aware of these people already. And so we almost have to be able to identify individuals, which is one challenge to prevention. So how are you identifying these people in the first place? How are we understanding their needs? What are their needs where we're not aware of them? So when we talk about these big enterprise, prevention is absolutely the direction forwards. It is going to improve people's outcomes and it makes the council more sustainable. What we need is a fundamental change to the way that we do things. And so that wave 3 coming through, there's so many different pieces that need to fit together. Data and AI absolutely is one small cog in that, but it's a whole system change that feeds through into it. Does that answer your question?
Well, it wasn't really a question, it was an observation, but yes, I think, we seem to have common ground. The point I'd make is that people are very happy to refer to AI when actually there's an awful lot of different flavors of AI. To an extent, this is an opportunity to make people less worried about the concept of AI by explaining to them, there's a risk, but there's a big benefit, and that's a trade they can then choose to make, or still be worried. But I think particularly in social care and prevention, we used machine learning to find out which buckets people fall into. You were headed for that bucket. We used an AI to pattern recognize that you were headed there. We're going to now work out what to do about that, and we're starting 6 months earlier than we would normally. And that's the sort of message that I think needs to come through in the comms, because we don't want people just worrying that the council's using AI. We want people to understand that we're using AI and why, and what the benefit to them is.
Yeah, and AI.
We seem to be in heated agreement as well.
I think so. But a lot of what we're doing at the moment doesn't even need AI. There's tons of stuff where we can make significant improvements. Without AI, that's just using our data and information more intuitively. And on the matter of prevention, I think it's also looking at the wider context of what prevention can be. So absolutely social care, where a lot of people think about it, but it is stuff like highways. What does prevention in highways look like? What does prevention in environmental sustainability look like? So it's looking at that wider context as well.
Thank you. Councillor Hophouse.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, come on, yes, I have. I'm going to be more specific. You have a section on page, I've lost it. No, I'll get there. On page 76 on place and fleet, and the whole game has changed with Mr. Trump invading Iran, and the continuation of using ICTs, internal combustion engine, needs to be seriously reviewed, and I hope you are going down that route, because at £9 a gallon, it's going to be very expensive to move diesel cars around the county. And I get the point. The second thing is, before that, on the ICT, I brought this up before, We are at the moment using 5 planning programs, ICT programs, to do the planning across this county. And it is about £1 million wasted, because that's what it is. Do you have plans to get rid of 4 of those programs, or bring in a completely new one and get rid of all 5? And I'll let you answer at the end, unless you want to answer now. Go on, answer now, and I'll come to the others in a minute. Okay, transferring from environment scrutiny, we have a backlog of policies, a big backlog of policies from the environment team, who are not big enough to deal with the workload that the government is throwing at them. This is about to get worse because of the announcement on the 19th of December about the phosphates and the new programme that's got to be put in place. And please, could you look at we've already talked about it here, the cross-referencing of climate change and the environment across the whole of the council plan, with the knowledge that we are we are way behind what we should be with that particular division at the moment.
Thank you to you, Chair. Yeah, a couple of things in there. Thank you. So in terms of the fleet item, so what I would do is I will feed that back to the team who are working on that, because what we don't have here is we don't have representative of all the different areas, the thematic areas in this space. So I will feed that back into that. So thank you for that. In terms of the planning ICT. So what you'll see in table 1 on page 76 is in wave 2. So that's the stuff that we're working on right now in terms of development. So developing the business cases. The second bullet down is entitled place-based system. So what this is looking at the moment, so it is looking at an option of bringing together the planning systems, but also those around environmental health, looking at GIS, so our geographical information system, looking at that in the round. So we're expecting I think it's an outline business case coming to the Inspiring Innovation Board next month, I believe. In terms of the environment backlog of policies and cross-referencing, again, that is something I will take back to the Community Place Environment Thematic Board.
Just then, in which case, if you're going to take the ICD reduced hosting costs, it's not 0.4 of a million, it's 1.4 million.
So the ICT hosting costs of 0.4, I believe, is related to SAP success factors. But what you're saying is there are additional savings that could be had from other consolidations of systems or upgrades. Yeah, recognised. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Mansell, and can I just suggest, Councillor Mansell, if you could put your tablet off the microphone, so I think that might be one of the things that's causing a little bit of interference. Fire away.
Thank you. It's my common habit to do that, so I hadn't realised it might cause an issue. Okay. I think I will resist the comment on fleet, but I've asked some questions in that area, and I have to say, not felt too reassured by what I say. But I think I better not open that one up. But I think it is one that does need opening up. But yeah, let's not do it now. Okay, I may have this wrong, but I think this is the first opportunity as a scrutiny committee we've had to comment on the size of savings that we need through transformation. We saw them at full council but we've not seen them at scrutiny. And they're big numbers. So the longer term one is there in the report. Within a few years, need to achieve 135 million. My recollection of what is needed for the budget next year is 60 million. So big numbers. Now, clearly, we are making some progress. I can see that. But I have to say, I think to a certain extent, I won't say entirely, but I think a little bit of what I'm trying to understand and think maybe reflects a little bit what Councillor Seave was just saying, although this is, a difficult area to understand. And I think that's what I'm trying to bring out. I'm sort of rather struggling to understand fully how we achieve it. We're sort of seeing these big numbers and we're seeing what transformation, inspiring innovation involved, and I'm really struggling to connect them together and understand what's happening. Clearly, there's some exciting things going on with AI and data, and yeah, it does sound amazing, and it does look as though it offers potential. The thing is, you wonder what it then means. But what actually results from it, and especially that part of what it's got to result in is saving money. So, we can see we're spending more money on AI and data at the moment. Where's the money coming out? And I think we're getting glimpses of that, but I am struggling. There's talk about whole system change and prevention, which is something I'm up for. And I think, that we need to do in many, many areas, not least in climate, to deal with climate change. Prevention is part of that, because we're heading for a pretty catastrophic world if we don't start preventing it. And it's going to cost us more and more as we try to adapt to it, which is also inevitable. But I hope in some areas where prevention is already happening, and I'm sure it is. But I wonder, prevention shouldn't be new, but yeah, it should move us round. I think what sort of worries me is it is a big change. If we want to stop people getting ill. I wonder how far we've achieved that, because we're seeing an ageing society, and what we're resulting with is an ageing society, and some of it is not saving money, but in a big way. In other words, costing lots. So, how much can you prevent? How much can you prevent? Can we stop people ever becoming ill? And I doubt that we can, but it's good that we keep people healthy for longer and all the rest and so on. Okay, but trying to do this transformation, these big moves in what is behind services, it worries me that we're trying to save money at the same time, because we're going to need to do these things quite carefully and possibly spend more money. They need investment to get to the situation we want to do, and we're learning as we go along, I think. So this is a path we're on. We're going to find out exactly what the path looks like as we start going down it. I'm quite comfortable going on the path, because I think the destination is a good one, but going on the path worries me, especially because we've got these massive financial savings to achieve alongside it, and I don't see. I'm not seeing clarity on where the savings actually come from, and I think the savings have to come on less staff, less contractors, possibly spending less money on services. What are the actual savings? And I think this was reflected a little bit in the discussion. And by chance you were eyeing each other, you had with Clive just now. So yeah, I think we need to maybe that's the point, and that is the question I've just got to. I think we need to see a little bit more detail, understanding what you're thinking behind the scenes, and especially that is going to lead to the type of savings we know is going to need it alongside. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mansell. Councillor Lation, I think, would like to come in.
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate that we have a number of scrutiny committees and they each have a different focus. And this scrutiny committee often is taking an overview of work that is seen in more detail at other scrutiny committees. One of the reasons that my colleague Theo and others amongst us refer to wave zero is that I think it's really, really important that we understand how My Life, My Future worked, because that was a very significant investment coming quite early in the life of Somerset Council and this administration. And I want us to see what can come as we follow that path ahead through a lens of what happened through My Life, My Future, how that has played out. And we see it in the quarterly budget monitoring, where you see one line of the budget reduce, another line of the budget increase, but to a lesser extent. And you see, you can't put this in a budget monitoring report, but you see the culture change in the whole team. And then as local members, we get anecdotal evidence as we're going about our daily lives. And that has certainly happened to me, that I have seen how reablement has helped family members where they've been able to go straight home from hospital instead of going into a care home. And they have been more than adequately supported to live healthier and independent lives at home. And so I really implore scrutiny members to think, when we're looking ahead at wave 1, wave 2 and further on, that we do see it through the lens of the success. And that has been mentioned already about maybe not enough evidence of achievements and success. We must look through the lens of what has been successful already and what can give us more confidence as we move through the next stage of it. If anybody tells you that developing a corporate plan at the same time as developing further the MTFP and the transformation plans is complex and difficult work, I would completely agree with them. But that is where we are, and that is the work we need to be doing. And we are absolutely dedicated to being successful on that extraordinary path that we are treading. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Mr. James.
Thank you, Chair. And just to support the point, I think the point that Councillor Mansell has made is excellent in terms of the review of the forward plan. So what's critical here, this is a retrospective report, as Sarah set out. I think what's clear from the conversation that's been had and the points that have been raised, actually that forward look of what those proposals are likely to be, what the scope of them are likely to be, and as Sarah set out, part of this is around consolidating and ensuring delivery of those wave 1 priorities. So the things that you've seen, the things that you've scrutinised, and the things that are in delivery, making sure they are in delivery, they're doing what they need to, there aren't any changes, and if there are, what are they and how they work forward. I think what we're also learning as well is it's far better to have a portfolio approach to transformation projects and programmes, because one thing, just as it did in My Life, My Future, to Councillor Lashon's point, actually the team had the flexibility to say, that's not working, we need to adapt and move to this point. So moving into that portfolio across each of those areas is quite key. I think the next step then is, as part of the conversation we need with scrutiny, following that feedback, if that's agreed, Chair, is we need to bring those we need to bring the initial views and thoughts around where those savings are likely to be, how scrutiny wants to engage in those matters, and importantly, what the interrelationship is with other scrutinies and how that can then feed through. So that's probably a subsequent conversation we need to have with scrutiny to set those particular points out. We need to get cracking quite quickly, though, in order to the next round of activity and the next level of potentially investment or potential kind of work, to ensure that we're on track to delivery into the MTFP. The purpose of transformation is to ensure that we are investing in resource or activity as early as possible to give confidence in the level of savings that could be delivered, but more importantly, the outcomes that will be improved as a result of that. And I think that's the scope of that scrutiny discussions with various scrutinies as we move forward. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. And gaining clarity on scrutiny's role in providing oversight and assurance is part of what our workshopping will be later on this morning. Officer Scrutiny.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I just wanted to come back on the point around understanding the individual business cases that have come through. So because you know, you're right, we're working at a huge pace. It's a huge transformation program that we're working on. The business cases came to scrutiny 28th of February as part of Appendix K to the MTFP papers that came through. We had a follow-up workshop as well, and obviously we've got a workshop after this one, which is talking about wave 2. So that's and there is a link in this report to Appendix K, just to make it easy so people to go kind of back through. It gives a little bit more information about what is happening in each of those areas to deliver these big numbers. So just wanted to pick that bit up, and of course prevention already happening. We have got lots of stuff going along across the organisation. It's really one of the things I wanted to mention here is obviously we bring you a snapshot, and picking up Councillor Steve's suggestion earlier about celebrating more of the fantastic things we're doing. What we're learning as we come through is the sorts of things that you're interested in and it's really pulling out in terms of these reports. So yeah, if it's a focus on prevention, that might be something that we pull out in future as well.
Thank you very much. Councillor Ashton.
Slightly different tack. What I'm worried about is risk of operational and reputational damage by using AI when it goes wrong. This has been shown in stark relief with Pocket OS this week, where Claude has managed to delete production databases from the system. And that, combined with the fact that we have a history here of rather loose separation of roles within the IT departments here, I would like to see some assurance, maybe to audit, that is being considered and assessed properly, because the universal panacea of AI does come with significant risks, not least on energy usage.
Yeah, I suppose when we're talking about AI, there's different levels of AI. And so the easiest way to talk that through is probably no-code AI. So that's your Copilot, that's your magic notes, it's personal productivity, it's safe, it's governed. And that's what a lot of officers have access to. We have tight controls. We do a lot of training. We're just refreshing our AI policy and an AI strategy that will accompany that. We've already got one in place. What we've then got is further levels where the risk does increase. So we've got low code AI where we can build stuff out in a fairly intuitive area, and we start to really set to what we call citizen developers. So they're staff members that are maybe a little bit more tech literate, they're engaged in this and they want to build stuff out themselves. And so we're not holding it in a central core. Again, what we're doing there is putting in the governance that's required. So what are our acceptable uses of that? How do we control them from not being able to go off and do things that are detrimental? And then in the very far end, we've got pro code. So that's, if you're talking about Claude is in that pro code space. There's probably 15 individuals in the organization that have access to that really sophisticated level of AI, because it requires that extra training, that extra governance. So what we try to do is take a kind of staged approach that low risk, open it out widely, provide the remit, high risk, very small group of people, a lot more governance and controls that sits around it. So certainly in that instance of a Claude, that wouldn't be able to happen here because we don't enable that sort of access to AI.
For those of us who are uninitiated, can you explain what Claude is?
So Claude is a family of models provided by the company Anthropic, which is a similar competitor to OpenAI. Predominantly, Claude is a product that is focused to enable software developers, other people who write code, it essentially does a lot of the heavy lifting for them. So we've engaged with Microsoft individuals who've used Claude. It's completely rewrote a whole application, something that would take, we're talking thousands of lines of code, would take us weeks of work. It's just done it in 5 minutes. So incredibly powerful. It's starting to our strategy recently has been to move towards more no-code, low-code solutions. It's easier for us to manage. It's onboarded quicker. It's starting to enable us to look at pro code, better solutions that give better outcomes. And because we're able to use AI to support us, our staff can do more in that space. So hopefully that gives so Claude, GitHub Copilot, they're very much for very technical people, small remit, high amount of governance that we provide around that.
Thank you very much. Very clear. Councillor Trimnell.
Thank you. So I'll try and make mine brief. I did have some questions about some other things, but maybe I say I'll email. I'll probably never get around to it. My first question is, are you, is there any chance that you, or have you already been to Adults and Health to talk about how AI is making changes? And if not, will you? I may just have forgotten because I've seen you in lots of different places, but it would be quite interesting to understand that. And that's where I could ask my questions further, I think, in terms of how is that going to help with this, that, and the other. But something that I think that I didn't see so much of, there was some there wasn't, fleet isn't quite the same, I don't think, but highways, we could really do with some work on highways, because I doubt if I'm the only councillor who gets 0 replies ever from anybody in highways, except that one person, and it's becoming really problematic, and they're short staffing. And is there a role that AI could play to assist with that, because it's a huge problem, I think, and so that's one area in terms of transformation as well that I really feel that we need to see or see work on. I don't know necessarily, everything doesn't have to be about money saving. Sometimes it's just about a better service, and it's just not a good service at the moment. And also, finally, I just wanted to say the waves, I still don't think I understand the waves. I thought I did. So wave 1 none of them may ever be complete. They just kind of roll. Oh, so they will be complete. So what wave are we in now? And we're in wave 1. And you said about the lifetime of the programme. And what is the lifetime of the programme?
Okay, that's a really good questions there. Thank you. So the waves, whilst they build on each other, what you will see is that the savings that are in the wave 1. So the wave 1 is we've identified these, we've signed off the business cases, we're in delivery. And some of that delivery is over 1 year, 2 year, 3 year. The whole programme, so the Inspiring Innovation Programme is aligned to the MTFP. So it is 2030, 2031. When I say that, it feels like ages away. It's not. And so that's the life of the programme. Now, what you will see, and again, I'm quite happy to circulate this. So a lot of the information that sets out where those savings happen was included as part of the MTFP, and I know there were lots of papers, so lots of appendices. So, but there was an appendix HI, which is the new savings, and in there it actually schedules out where those savings apply over the year, over the following year. So that's something we can include in update reports, kind of moving forwards. So wave 2 is what we're developing at the moment. So the next round of business cases will be wave 2, and then so forth. And it's just so that we can chunk them up into, these ones are approved, we're delivering. Right, next ones we're in development. They'll get approved, we'll be delivering. Then we'll be on to the next one. So it's this kind of making sure that at all times we're in delivery and development. We're not saying we're only delivering these, when we get to the end we'll start thinking about the next ones. It's this continuous improvement loop. And so that's on that bit. I have got an answer for you on the highways bit as well. Do you want me to do go into that space. Yeah, so what you'll see in, and I might have to call on Carl to give a bit more detail because he's more involved in this than I am. But what you will see in Wave 2 development in the table, again in table 1, is in place. What we are doing, you'll recall that we did something that's called a diagnostic across the whole council with our Newton colleagues, and that the real kind of deep dives in that focused on our kind of people services, so adults and children, and then they're where the business cases came from. So we are now, as part of the development of Wave 2, doing a deeper diagnostic on place, which includes highways. Carl, is there anything else you'd want to?
Yeah, it's worth saying that is actually a Somerset-led activity. So that's not something that Newton are doing for us. That's something that we are, as a council, leading as a diagnostic process. It is currently live, so there are conversations happening with the service this week, just thinking where we are, and which will feed into a time frame of surfacing opportunities by the end of May for further exploration to just kind of prioritise down. So essentially, we've kind of looked outwards, done an early kind of assessment, and then we're focusing down with the service to understand where are we going to identify the best opportunities for Wave 2. That doesn't preclude that all of those activities might not appearing in a later wave, but that we should be able to say something more at the kind of next scrutiny update around what's coming out of that. And in the workshop, we could probably talk a bit more about the types of things that are involved in there. But yeah, it's important to say that is a Somerset Council-led activity.
Yeah, sorry. Sarah, can I come back in on that? So what's really important about this part of the contract, you'll remember when we were looking at contracting with a strategic transformation partner, was to build capability within Somerset. So what we're not doing is forevermore saying, well, we need consultants in to support with us. So what Carl is describing there is Somerset leading with the experience, guidance of Newton, building that capability so that we are then leading in that space. So I think it's a really important part because that was absolutely part of the procurement process and the contracting, which was we want to make sure that we as a council are developing the skills along. We're not having somebody coming in and doing to us and then going. This is about how we learn as a council as well.
Just quickly about the adults coming to scrutiny, and I note now I see Jill's, so maybe Jill will.
Thank you. Mr. Heafy.
Just to give members more assurance on the rigour of the process, there are largely 4 stages to a transformation project. So the first one is identifying the opportunity, proving the concept works. Second stage is about developing the business case, which says this is what we're going to achieve, when we're going to achieve it, how we're going to achieve it. The third is developing the delivery plan. So this is the detail about how we're going to deliver it, along with dashboards that monitor progress. Are we on target? Are we off target? And the fourth one, to answer your point, Councillor Trimble, was the one around the closeout report. So ultimately, at the end of each project, you'd expect there to be a closeout report. What do we set out to achieve? What did we actually achieve? What went wrong? What could learn from it? And now confirm that the budget has been removed related to the financial aspects of that project. So each project follows that phase, but they all will be running at different parts of that phase, as Sarah described. So that's why transformation programs can be quite complex, because they'll all be at different stages of that cycle of production. So you run these coterminously. That helps.
Thank you. I've got Councillor Payne in the room. I don't see any others in the room. So once Councillor Payne has spoken, I'll ask Councillor Slocum to speak.
Thank you, Chair. There's a couple points really I want to raise, but first I just want to thank Officer Scrutiny and Officer Pym for the work that they put into this, because I mean this has been coming to scrutiny for a year now, I think, and there were a lot of questions about ethical use of AI last year, and safe to say that I think many of us are reassured about the work that goes on in Somerset and the exemplary work as well that is undertaken by all departments. So thank you. Just a couple questions really in relation to things that we have said over the last year that I can't see in this report. So first of all, he says as he loses where he was, it was to do with, oh my, where's it gone? Oh, okay. So to do with adult social care. So I believe it was discussed last year about using artificial intelligence to be able to assess and look at prevention of those who might be at risk of falls in their homes, that kind of stuff. And that's just something I didn't pick up on in the report. Secondly, when it comes to highways, I'm really intrigued by the idea of using AI to do automated pothole assessments. So I wonder whether or not you could just very briefly explore that. But I mean, one thing I wanted to add is that I think, sort of for the record, that we as a council have really managed to grasp that AI isn't going to be taking over jobs, but it's about getting ahead of it and working with AI. I think that's where we are, and where we are compared to a year ago in terms of national use of AI is that it's much safer now, and it's not going to take over industries. We just need to be prepared to use it. So just those 2 points really, and whether or not you can elaborate for me. Thank you.
So on the adults one, I think it's helpful to align it back to the different waves. So we're starting to do, we're already working in adults. So the first thing that we're doing in adults at the moment is stabilizing our data foundations. We needed to reinforce how data was used in adults. We're currently working through that. We've also got a new finance module that's going live in adults that we're currently working through the migration on. So there's some key data foundation things that we need to do in adults to start off with, and that's very much in that phase one. We're starting to look and have conversations around how we can better strategize within backlogs. So where we've got backlogs, how can we use data? Probably not so much AI, but how can we use data to get an understanding of what the priorities are within that, how we can essentially improve the services, and that's kind of sitting in that kind of phase two. We are starting to have conversations around falls modelling. So how do we identify individuals that are more likely to have a fall, and what does that look like? And that's very much in that phase wave 3 around prevention. So that might mean that we have a couple of different models that sit in that space. We might have one that is very broad. So identify people that are at a heightened risk of falls, but it's a very large amount of the population. And what we might be able to do there is kind of, as an example, I'm sure the service would have a different approach, but we might send flyers through their doors, you know? So large population, cheap solution, engages with our residents to help them understand, oh, actually I could use with a handrail to get in the door. And then a different model that maybe focuses on higher risk individuals, but a smaller cohort. So for them, we might want more personalized approaches for them, where we can help and support them in a different way that has more of that kind of human connection rather than a letter through the door, as an example. So where we're starting to talk about those different phases of transformation, at the moment we're doing the foundations, we're starting to look at some of those quick wins, efficiencies within the service, and planning already for that wave 3, where we're looking at whole service transformation, linking into service redesign within cars area around how we can do processes differently. Highways. We had an initial scoping with highways, probably 3 weeks ago. We're already making action in that area. First off is the data again. So we use a highway system. We're bringing that into what I would have spoken about in the when we were demonstrating the business case, was that enterprise-wide data platform. One data platform to hold all this data securely. We're bringing that highways data in. And there's a lot of activity that happens in highways. There is a lot of potholes that get filled in. What we are not very good at is being able to express that data back to our residents and to have that kind of link. So we're looking at, can we use cameras attached to vehicles to identify potholes? We know other councils have looked into it and have made significant progress. So we're absolutely looking at that. But there's also a couple of other pieces. So if you go and report a pothole, you've got a completely blank map. So you actually don't know if you're reporting a pothole that's already been reported 200 times before, and you're just adding to that list. So there's a piece here about how we can use data to be more transparent and say, yeah, actually, we know there's a pothole there already. it's already been reported, it's going to be fixed in a week. So that you've gone on to report a pothole, actually you don't need to report it, and you already know it's going to be filled in next week. So, but that will involve other conversations around how we hold that, around we will need to be more open with our residents around what is happening with that pothole. So yeah, there's that data piece that fits in with that.
Thank you very much.
Right, Councillor Stanton.
Just a quick follow-up on that one, really. What time scale? I mean, that would be really good to be able to go onto the map and see that it's been reported already. When's that likely to happen?
We don't have timescales on that piece of work at the moment, so we're just pulling in the data at the moment. That involves liaising with the hosting service for that. It's hard to gauge that. I suppose there's a piece here around prioritization, and so while the business case gave us a lot of resources, a lot of those resources are currently deployed in housing and homelessness, in adults, in children's. So if we're looking at those financial benefits, actually, if we're visualizing data on potholes, it's probably not massive financial benefits there. That needs to then play in with actually really improves the residents' experience. So those sort of prioritization things we really need to work through. Do we say, actually, we're going to slow down adults' falls risk modelling because we want to be able to see where the potholes are? It's all those things. So we're trying to manage that in a way that maximizes return for the organisation. Go on. Feed it.
I do a quick follow-up on that. A financial benefit. A lot of Richard's time and his officer's time is taken up dealing with me and lots of other councillors whinging about potholes not having been dealt with, being dealt with twice, teams not going back. So there must be a financial benefit there somewhere, I think.
Councillor Wilkins.
Yeah, I mean, I spent a lot of time talking about when we can get the resource to do the important work in the IT part. And you know, we've already talked about business cases and financial incentives, but I just want to say that it's not just about potholes. It's about road surfaces and the preemptive work that we do. And this is what we're really good at in highways, is preventing potholes forming in the first place. And the schemes you've seen rolling across the county to do our surface dressing and resurfacing, which can be quite annoying if you get stuck in a roadblock, but it prevents the preventative measures are. This is why we get such a good score from central government on our roads. But you know, potholes are still important, and I had a lovely letter this morning from I think it was Pitminster Parish Council saying how pleased they were at the work that we've done to fill some of those holes.
Right, thank you. If we may, then we'll beam Councillor Slocum down to be amongst us.
Thank you very much.
From the bridge of the Starship Enterprise. Lovely to see you, Councillor Slocum.
Thank you very much, and thank you. I've got a couple of questions, and you know I can't be there, but I'm here, and I'm here. We talk a lot about preventative. We talk a lot about always prevent. And what I want to say is on the page 76 where it says wave 1 delivery, I think what we should do is change the culture. I think what we need to be is preparation. I love the bit about the AI when they were talking, and I do want that to come to scrutiny, of course. But sending letters out asking people what they need is a wonderful idea. But what about, why don't we send letters out telling people what do they think they need and they can get it themselves? Not everybody. I think what we're doing is we're cozying everything up. We need to have a preventative measure, but we need to have a preparation measure in the council, which will save money. When you know we're all living longer, so therefore adults will drain every council over the country if we don't prepare. And I think what we should be saying to people is look in your homes, look where there's identities where you found that there are problems, and prepare. There was a document written some time ago. It wasn't My Life, My Future. It was Fit for My Future. This was a document that was done by the Health and Wellbeing. It was an excellent document about preparing for the future. And I would like that re-enablement of that document, not to write another document, yet another one, yet to use what we've got, because that document was absolutely brilliant in taking ownership, about people taking ownership for their lives themselves. There'll be many people financially who can't do that. Of course they will. But there'll be many people who can actually think, I'm going to make my life a bit easier so I don't fall down the stairs, so I don't fall here, make my life safer. And what we're not doing, and I believe the culture is very, very much on, it's somebody else's problem. And I would like AI to be used in a way where we can do leaflets out to say to people that they need to look after themselves as well, that the council hasn't got pounds of thousands and billions of money. And I just think that's a really important factor where we could save an awful lot of money. I think that the AI sorting out the data foundation, I think this is brilliant. I think we also need shared data. Shared data should be everywhere, so that we've all got that data, that we're all getting the knowledge together. And I think that's fundamental. But I just wanted to say, I really believe sometimes that we are being too soft. I think we're being too soft as a council. I think we're caring and we're soft, but I think people need to take ownership of themselves. And I think we could save an awful lot of money in adults and housing by actually preparation. So thank you, Chairman, for that. And happy to take, if you want to speak to me, I'm here.
Thank you very much, Councillor Slocum. And a number of the issues that you've just raised, and indeed other members have talked about, do feed back into the discussion we had earlier about the council vision.
I've been here, yeah.
And I think we need to be aware of the interrelatedness of all of the things that we've been talking about this morning. I've got one question which relates to Appendix A on governance. We've, I think, understood most of the darker blocks there, but the Improvement and Transformation Advisory Group, we haven't really heard anything about, and it would be very interesting to know exactly how that fits in, and indeed who it is that's offering the independent assurance that's covered by that block.
Thank you, Chair. We're really happy to put an update into the next quarterly report that sets out the initial discussions that have taken place and where the initial feedback from the board as well, and the areas that we're progressing. So happy to incorporate that into the next report.
It would be interesting to know, and interesting to know who is on that board. Okay, is there anything else, ladies and gentlemen? Now, I'm not entirely sure really that we've got any specific recommendations that have arisen from our discussion that need to go to the executive. However, I am conscious of the fact that we have, I think, a majority of members of the executive in attendance this morning, and they will have heard the discussion. They will know the points that we have made. So I think we have done what we needed to do, which was to review and comment on the Inspiring Innovation Programme Progress Report. And I would like to thank very much the officers for having been in attendance this morning and to have responded so fully to the points that we have raised. Everybody happy with that? Good, thank you very much. So we will move swiftly on then to agenda item 8, which is the Corporate Resources Forward Plan, pages 91 to 92. Mr. Vlatkovic.
Thank you, Chair. The 27th of May meeting, we have 3 items scheduled. We are still waiting for confirmation about the medium-term financial strategy, whether that will be for May or indeed for June. The community working review is on the agenda, and pending meeting with the officers later in today, we will also confirm for the Section 106 and the community infrastructure levy. The June meeting is with we are having general fund revenue and capital budget monitoring report outturn and for of March 2025. We have annual report from lead member for transformation, human resources and localities, and you will also receive the report from the task finish group, which is council tax reduction scheme report with the proposed recommendations to go to the executive, which need to be agreed at this committee as well. And we heard also from Sarah Hawkins that the for July corporate plan is planned to be on the agenda as well. And that is also, Chair, we shall be receiving dates for the quarterly updates and other financial also updates soon, which we will be putting those in after the May meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. I know some members, Councillor Mansell particularly, were very concerned about some of the items that should have been appearing on this agenda and why they had been put forward to May. All for good reasons, but we do hope that we will be able to look at those items in detail in May. And the community working review, we are especially looking forward to. And we look forward to looking at the report that has been prepared in good time so that we have the opportunity to be able to comment on that and its recommendations, having been able to give it proper thought. So we're really hoping to engage well with that. Is there anything else that any member thinks we need to put onto the forward plan at this stage? No? Right, well, in that case, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to close the meeting and suggest that we have a comfort break now of approximately 15 minutes. So I'm suggesting we try to reassemble at about 25 minutes to 1, and we'll begin the workshop then. So just about a quarter of an hour, if we can please make sure we're back in our seats. Thank you all very much.